welcome back to another episode of Love of Pages. I'm Elizabeth, and as always, I am joined by the wonderful Naimah.
Hey.
The lovely Jessica.
Hello.
And the fantastic Steven.
It's me.
This is Geek Elite's virtual book club podcast, where the four of us get together and torture, inspire, generally enjoy each other's picks of novels that we share. So this week, we are finishing up the second half of my most recent choice, Rebel Queen, by Michelle Moran. Not gonna lie, I reread the second half again really early compared to when we're recording, so I'm going to do my best to remember what happened again. But before we jump into that, because no book club is complete without beverages, and because the book is set in India, we opted for a round of tea this week. So, Jessica, what are you drinking?
Darjeeling tea, which is an Indian tea. So.
Naimah, what are you drinking?
I did a mix, so it's my peach and my mint tea, because I was trying to mix it up.
Solid. And Steven, you do not look like you did tea.
No,
what
no,
did you do?
Today, I just felt hot all day, and I was sleepy earlier today. So I am dual wielding caffeine and water.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you are mixing the caffeine with water as opposed to with more caffeine.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's a step in the right direction.
There was a story that I read one time. The headline was "Man who had a heart attack after drinking 12 energy drinks a day." It's something about this man was trying to go around and do a whole public campaign to make it so kids couldn't buy energy drinks. And yeah, dude, if you drink 12 a day, that's going to happen.
How long? It's a completely side subject. I just want to know how long he drank for. I know plenty of people who probably had 12 energy drinks in a day. And yes, their heart should have stopped at this point. But
I'm going to go ahead and say, he did it for a long time and everything. But I want to say he can't have done it for that long. Just as a function of the human body.
Fair enough. And I am drinking Jasmine Nights tea. It's a blend I picked up at Gallifrey, the Doctor Who Comic-Con. So, which coordinates lovely with my TARDIS mug.
Yeah.
Which is actually Mitch's TARDIS mug that I have commandeered since moving in with him.
Is the inside of it?
It's now mine.
Does it the reverse of the outside have?
Yes, it is bigger on the inside.
Sorry. No, this is good. I'm proud of you. No. Is the inside on the outside of it? It pushes inwards. Does the inside have that same shape? Is it harder to wash because of this? It's smooth on the inside.
It does not have that same shape. It's smooth inside.
I am so proud of them. There's a slight thing, but that's not a lot.
Yeah. And it's got a cute little topper.
Nah.
Keep your tea warm. Is very lovely. So, jumping into our book, because a lot goes on in the last 120 pages of this book.
You don't say.
How does everybody feel?
I don't know how we went from 0 to 900 so fast. It feels like one of those things where, you have 6 seasons of a TV show and then they find out they're not being renewed again until they try to wrap up everything in the last 3 episodes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just yes.
Yeah. I agree with this one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Though
exactly.
I will the way that I feel though is not limited to just that. I don't fully understand how they arrived at the summary that they did for this that gets published with this book, because I feel like they're overselling some things and underselling others. It's weird. The way that they describe the armies of people, like they say an army of women and everything, when it's a much smaller group. I'm not saying they're not like an army's, like they can be a full army by themselves, yes. But if we were comparing and contrasting these two armies, I would say an army of and an elite squad of. Like
I think what you're getting into, and you get a hint of it in the very opening pages of the book, where she says, you know, this is the folk tale about the rebel queen who escaped the British by, you know, dressing as a farmer's wife, which she says is true, but not true. And so I think that's where you get this. It was an army of women because they had to have been a massive amount of people because there's no way they could have fought the British otherwise. Like, that's just not.
I'll take that one. I'll take that. Yeah. Is it? I caught a fish this big.
Yeah. No. I caught a fish this big. Like I said, I caught a fish this big.
And it's been a while for them to expand the story. Oh, also the story did make me also think that we would get a little bit more about Lakshmi.
Than we actually did. That's fair. That's fair. So, now that we're at the end of the book, same favorite characters, new favorite characters?
Same least favorite character, but that's because she's also the villain. She's always been the villain and somehow has gotten worse.
Yeah.
Like, how do you escalate like that? That's like a serial killer level of escalation for a book.
And anybody feel better or worse about our protagonist? Because I know she was not the favorite.
No strong for or against.
I guess I feel a little bit better. Actually, no. No, she should. No.
It's our turn.
You're just
like,
mad that she
slowly
trusted
remembering.
the.
Oh God, that was just like no, I don't like this person. I do like her more than I did at the beginning, but that's only, I think, because I have a soft spot for like feeling bad for people, and the whole fallout between her and her sister like hurt me. Like I was like, no.
Yeah, that one hurt.
No.
No, I was more thinking of how she knew what's her face. It's been over a week. She knew what's her face.
Yeah.
The villain.
Right.
Yeah.
Killed. Yeah, was the villain, and she didn't say anything because she's like, but she probably won't
I'm
believe
afraid.
me anyway. And I was like, girl, you have an obligation. Like,
I mean, that's fair. Although when she did come clean, the Rahani did say, I probably wouldn't have believed you. Like,
I know, but like at least it would have put
at least
like
it
a little
put
tidbit in your
seed
brain.
there, you know?
Yeah.
No, even you
You
like
pay attention more.
even if you're not going to necessarily get all of the legal action you want in one go, have a police report on file.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you, but she clearly was not wrong to at least have the hesitation of, I don't think the Rahani's going to believe me. Like, I don't think I have a nail
I
in the
don't
coffin.
believe me.
Yeah. But all I'm saying is, like, what was the fallout of this? Obviously, she's afraid of, like, going home. But right now, home, they're just, like, kidnapping women and, like, putting them in prostitution houses because they're pretty. So it's like, what, like, it's not better. Either way, kind of British invasion is happening. So it's like, I don't know where, like, what the rock and the hard place is for her right here. It's like, it's all going to be terrible from this point forward.
There's the thing.
That's what you're working with.
Or when we first started reading this book and we were podcasting about it, there was a phrase that we kept using. We kept saying British invasion, right?
Yeah.
Was that an intentional like reclamation of this idea when the Beatles came around? Was that like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones stuff? Was it an intentional thing where they were like, yeah, we're taking it back? Or was that unintentional?
Why I knew you were going to say that, I don't know. Like I said, British invasion. I was like, that's going to come up about. I don't think
I
it
just
was
feel bad that I
intentional.
It's
I don't think it could have been intentional.
I hope it wasn't
It's
intentional.
a gut punch.
Yeah.
So I think it was intentional, but not for the reasons that you think it was.
Okay.
Because when the Beatles first started getting big, particularly as the, anti-establishment culture of the 60s.
Yeah, I want to hold your hand. Subversive.
Yeah, it was in fact, the British invasion may have originally come as a derogatory term
Okay.
against the Beatles, who were going to corrupt the American youth.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then it kind of got
help
flipped
there.
on its head.
They
We
Yankee
never needed help.
they Yankee doodled it. I get it.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
they Yankee
okay.
doodled it
Okay.
because that's the only thing you can do
It's true.
to a certain extent. So, but yeah, so in this part of the book, Sita's sister has been married off. Everything's looking fine and dandy, and then the British start issuing orders. And the Rouhani is without an heir, and the Raja, dies.
Died.
And died.
That was air quotes for anyone just listening.
Luckily, after the Rouhani had paid for, purchased, adopted another baby.
I don't think she paid. I don't think she paid. And look,
I don't think she paid either. But it also wasn't like a kidnapping.
They commandeered a baby.
yeah, it was like a commandeering. They conscripted a
the
child.
baby. Yeah, they conscripted a child into royal service.
Family.
And so when the Raja dies, the British determine that the adopted son cannot inherit. The royal son can inherit property, but not title.
Yeah.
I guess is essentially what it is. So the British take over the palace and move the Rouhani and all of our main characters go to the smaller palace across town.
The summer palace.
The summer palace.
The summer palace.
And then we begin the appeals process, which includes Sita going to England
Ooh.
to attempt to persuade Queen Victoria to give India back.
Listen, I've heard some great things about Queen Victoria, and she tried to learn some languages. That was never gonna work, bro. Like what? Like what was that plan? Like because she's a woman, I'm gonna send some women? Like no. Britain's just as sexist as everywhere else.
True. However, they did at least get in the front door, which the other guy failed to do. So
Yeah.
And that's what she was banking on.
Was that also just curiosity's sake? Like if someone's like, "Hey, there's a guy downstairs. He's got like a zebra pattern top hat and boots with bells on them. He says he's here for you."
I'm 90% sure if they didn't speak like English the way they did, she would have just been uninterested after like 5 seconds. She was just like, "Oh, look at them. They're ladies. They speak English. What is this?" And it's like,
wow, that's great.
yeah, they look exotic, but they speak my language. Excellent. But yeah, so they attempt Queen Victoria and utterly fail.
Surprise. Said no one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they meet one of the rival king's like representatives who gives them all the like heebie-jeebies. But they go back reluctant, which is when they find out about the atrocious order regarding comfort women to be taken out of the villages.
Mm-hmm.
And then things spiral very quickly. And while, yes, I know we give a lot of grief in terms of like going from 0 to 100 in like 0.3 seconds, it's also pretty accurate to the way these kinds of things work, where there's build up, and then entire systems crumble. I mean, when you think of like the French Revolution or, you know, any of those kinds of things, like there's a lot of little things, and then there's that one thing.
Yeah, they call it a powder keg for a reason.
Yeah. The step too far. Then there's rebel uprisings, and the queen, or the Rani, tries to kind of stay neutral, and then Connie,
I like Connie.
Keely.
I like Kahani.
Yeah.
Or Tahani.
Yeah.
That's good.
Villain, villainess, like throws her under the bus very quickly. Turns out it's because rebel leader is her fiance. Everything kind of goes to hell in a handbasket.
Mm-hmm.
There's my one curse word for the evening.
Was the curse word hell?
Yeah.
I don't think that's a bad word.
Hell is not a bad word.
Yeah. We don't live in 1822.
Yeah.
It's cool to say hell.
Anyway, it all goes to hell in a handbasket, and then there's back and forth, and the Rani decides might as well throw her lot in with the rebels, because at this point she's going to try and do it. She tries to negotiate safe passage, at least for the British. The rebels decide that's a no-go.
Right.
Surprise, surprise, which of course means that when the tides turn later on, there's even more brutal retaliation. And so after Villainous's evil plots are discovered, she is handed off to the British to do with what they will.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to they are then under siege. So they have to figure out what they're going to do. And Sita's only real friend, the other gal, what was her name?
I'm so bad with names for this one. I'm so sorry.
I'm bad with their names. Her name also starts with an S, but she's her fate makes me sad.
But she comes up with this plan to dress as the Rani and have the Rani dress as a British soldier who has been killed inside the palace walls in order to escape in the chaos once the siege comes through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so they all dress as British soldiers with the exception of
Friend.
the friend. And they escape. Of course, the friend does die. She is killed by the British, who are really pissed because they realize very quickly that is not the Rani. And once they are outside of town, they then buy clothes off of a farmer to get the Rani safely away. At that point, they split. So Sita and the head guardsman that she's in love with, that she ends up marrying. Spoiler alert at the end.
Yeah, he has the cool name.
He has the cool name, and he went to
Rashun.
England with them. Rashun? He went to England. Oh, there's that whole love story. Does he love me? Does he love me not? Because the dude can't say her name, apparently. Just makes
adorable.
things
Just
so
that
much
girl
worse.
from Chauncey.
That was
Yeah.
like middle school level. Like
Like, it was so painful.
your best friend is like, well, no, he said he liked a girl like from this place.
And you're not from this place.
this place. I'm not from this place. And he's just like later on, just like, you do live
From
there, don't
Liz.
you?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's like the conversation of like, no, like, well, do you like me?
Like, do you like me?
Or just like me. Like,
Yeah.
It was very much, and I was like, why wouldn't he just say her name? Like,
Oh yeah, I like Zeta.
but in any case, it was painful to read the first time. It was painful to read the second time, and I'm sure if I had to read it a third time, if I read it a third time, it would be painful that time too. It was just all around painful. Anyway,
Men.
because after the discovery of Villainess's betrayal, it is discovered that Gopar or Gosar? Gopa?
It's the
letter dude, right?
audiobook.
The letter
Copa,
dude.
Yeah.
The letter dude had
Co-conspirator.
The co-conspirator had been hoarding letters, and Sita finds out that her sister had been taken by the British soldiers, and that her father had died attempting to rescue her sister. And it's been 4 months. So they ride south to go see about rescuing sister. The Rani rides north. So they split their party.
You're not supposed to do that in D&D. Just putting that out.
Yeah.
You're not...
You're not supposed to do that in anything.
Yeah.
that's
Very much harder on the
Yeah.
DM. Yeah.
I mean, it turns out in this instance to not really matter because they get back, they all like come together and then disaster strikes. But
This
anyway, she goes to rescue her sister. Her sister is pregnant with a British baby.
It's a British baby.
It's a British baby.
It's got blue eyes. So
Yeah. And her husband,
when it doesn't like Google Gaga, it just goes like hip 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 all the time. So it gave it away as soon as they started talking to it.
no, she's pregnant.
Cheerio.
Oh God.
Anyway, so her husband does not want her back. She of course blames Sita for all of this.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
Give me pretty
were-
clothes. I'm pretty. I get kidnapped. That's
Your fault,
That's the
clearly.
regular course of
Your
events.
fault.
Yeah.
Not, men.
Yeah.
Always men's fault.
As we know, traumatized individuals do not always think
Yes,
logically or rationally.
It's true.
it is true.
And I think the most heartbreaking was when Zita was like, she could see her grandmother in her sister's eyes. And I was like, oh, that's rough. That's like, rough. So Sita's dealing with all those losses and decides that since her sister is not going to speak to her anyway, that at this point, the only thing she can do is return to the Rani, and they go back to the Rani, and the idiot men in charge are celebrating a coronation in the middle of a war because that's what you do.
Yeah. I'd say those who seize power typically do dumb things.
And the British attack. The Rani dies. Sita and the love interest get away. And so they escape to the other side of India
Mumbai.
where they live basically in anonymity, and they bring Sita's sister out eventually, and her nephew, and they live happily ever after.
Well,
And the
Sita
British are
lives
ruling.
happily ever after.
Sita
Sita
Yeah,
lives-
like the child dies at 10 and then her sister dies 2 years later, which is the most depressing course of events I have ever heard. It's like, I tried so hard to save my sister.
And she just went and died anyway.
I tried so hard. That's it. Like, there was nothing that came of it. Oh, God.
Yeah.
I think that's the classic way this would go. Like people who were formerly involved in some kind of like military thing escape to live out their days in like a humble life and just get to relax. There's only two ways for this to go. Like the rest of your life is three ways. The rest of your life is happy. Two, the rest of your life is at least not ravaged by war things. so it's fine, or 3, you get pulled back into it, and that's the sequel.
Yeah.
I have one more option: you die, which is what the Ronnie did.
That's fair. That's fair.
That's usually option 1.
Yeah.
One. Yeah,
You're going to die. It's a war.
That's just usually option 1. But yeah, no. Sita's the only one who Sita and her love interest live happily ever after. And this whole story is apparently being told when she is much older.
After
trying to kind of chronicle.
British lady comes and is like, "You should publish your diaries," and she's like, "Okay."
Every time I read this, it makes it worse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's publish it to the world. No, like
let everybody else suffer with me.
I mean, makes for a good story, but like sad. Like I didn't think it was going to be like I want to call it a happily ever after, but it's the most depressing happily ever after I think I've read. Where like your main protagonist, she makes it out, she does good, she finds love, she's got like 3 kids, she lives in a nice city, but literally everyone around her is dead.
Yeah. This would be the episode of a series, like a sci-fi series, that didn't actually happen. The person at the end of it, they lived to be to an old age and everything and had a sad life and stuff. Then they get pulled out and they get put back into events. And we just got to see them old for one episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, to me, that's one of the reasons that I actually really I enjoy this book is because you get a happy ending, but you don't. And many of Michelle Moran's books, you may get a somewhat happy ending, but she doesn't tend to sugarcoat that all happy endings come with significant loss. Like
nobody makes history, you know.
Yeah.
History's history. Right. Nobody makes it out of exchanges of power unscathed. Mm-hmm. Like
yeah, even if it's just like the teacher's aide succeeds, like the teacher, and they become the teacher, there's still a teacher who is now doing something else. In a much lower stakes situation, there's still an unhappy person.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Because when a heart breaks, it don't break even. No.
I loved that song.
So what are your overall thoughts? Would you recommend this book?
Yeah.
And if so, to whom?
My friend that likes history.
So me.
Yeah. No, otherwise, Lexi likes history too. Yeah. Hey. Lexi probably would like Michelle Moran.
I feel like I would recommend, but I don't know to who. Like, I really do want to recommend it to some of my friends, but a lot of the people I think first in my mind I'd recommend it to who like historical romance, a lot of them are Indian or have ancestry that's from India. So I feel like this is just not going to be the book that's going to ring true for them. In a way, just because I feel like for certain audiences, this needed to be tapered down a bit. It did get very brutal, like in the end. Like there were small bits in the audiobook where it's like, yeah, and now we described exactly how we killed like the Muslim people versus the Hindu people. And I'm like, you went really deep into like making that a terrible, terrible death for their specific kind of like religion, way of life, etc. And so, like, that probably would be like, yeah, but I feel like it'd be a little bit weird for them. But I would recommend the book just to generally anybody. My main thoughts of it are just like, I didn't expect these paths for each one of their lives. Like, for some reason in my brain, I expected, maybe because I'm slightly a pessimist, Kahani to live a good life. Like, she was not going to get caught. Like, we'd still think she's horrible, but she would get out okay. Ronnie kind of happened the same way I thought it would. She wouldn't live. I didn't think Zita would have a happily ever after. I thought that maybe, she would sacrifice herself for her sister having a happily ever after. Mm. Yeah. Turn the tables on everything I expected to happen at the end of that book.
I think I don't know if I would necessarily recommend the book in the sense that it's like go out and buy it, but I would loan the book to somebody.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm. Excellent. Yeah. So, any other thoughts, any plot points that really stuck out to anybody that I missed?
Okay, so I just want to bring this up because this was a topic of major conversation in a previous podcast about how lovely Anu's husband had been. Dude is I'm going to use my curse word, asshole. That was unacceptable. It was utterly unacceptable.
It was,
and I get it.
True to the culture, though.
Yeah,
and the
like
time.
I get it.
And
The time period. But good God, like you were supposed to be the good guy.
You fixed broken wings.
You're like, oh, you were
recording
so
songs now?
close to
Is that
being
what
the
this
like
is?
good guy.
To his defense, as his letters continually point out, like at first, even knowing that she would no longer be pure, he was still willing to take her back. I think
It was the
obviously
pregnant that
obviously the issue was the pregnant. However, reading it a second time through, I didn't actually feel like it was the pregnant that really bothered him. It was
Thank
the
you,
dead
'cause
in the
it seems
eyes.
like-
dead in the eyes.
I don't even know if it was any of that, like, because they went to him first, unless I was like listening. Obviously, I did the audiobook, so it might have like come off a bit different. But they went to see him first looking for her, which is strange because they know she'd been taken, but like they went to his house first, and he already seemed to have been detached. And he might have known about the pregnancy, but considering it's only been 4 months, can't consider that she was like, unless he'd seen her in like the past couple of weeks, she was that apparent to be pregnant. And so it's just like, it kind of seemed like he was already of the mindset that she had been so tainted that like he couldn't accept her back. Like it wasn't just like, well, like obviously one of them slept with her, it wasn't me, you know, that goes against our beliefs and all other kind of stuff. But it was just like, she's too far gone because she'd been gone for X amount of
So
time.
long.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although I would be interested to see, because I think about it, when you're with somebody, if you actually, and obviously we have no idea because we don't get much character, we get some character development with him, but not a ton.
Yeah.
Thinking as a living, breathing human being, I have a good inclination as to what would break my partner, what would break their soul,
Yeah.
and how long that would take. And so he may have already sensed that, like,
she was broken.
Oh yeah, she was gone.
she is not going to be the person I married.
She likely broke the day they took her. Like, just from the context we got of her, that type of thing was
yeah.
never supposed to happen to her. She lived a very blessed kind of life. I mean, like, they didn't live in the best area, but her sister made sure that she lived a good life. She didn't have to go through the same kinds of things. And so, yeah, I can see, you know, being ripped from your house and knowing where you're going being a horrifying experience. But no, I hated the, like, because it played in my head, the idea of her getting back to her house and basically just begging to be accepted there while pregnant, while hyped up on hormones, while knowing you're carrying. Because she did refer to her own child as a bastard. That's not me.
Yeah.
But like getting to that point and just wanting to feel like you're still home and not getting any sort of indication of that. Because yeah, she was colder. Yeah, her sister didn't recognize her, but like she still wanted that to be her home.
Yeah, I don't
it
think
just wasn't.
I couldn't turn the person away, personally.
Yeah. I get it. He's like,
But-
not my, like, he has beliefs and is not my wife, but like to have that feeling towards someone and like, that to me, that would have been like a whole kind of struggle to be like, no, you have to go type thing. Like,
Yeah.
that's, ugh.
I could not do this.
But you also have to wonder, in that time and in that place, because it while being awful is never excused, it should in some instances try to be understood, or at least try to understand why not completely evil people do terrible things.
Yeah.
It doesn't excuse their behavior, but
I don't think he's evil. I just think he was an asshole in that moment. Because like I do get it. Like the bar has moved for like what is considered acceptable in society, especially in different cultures, where it's like what she did, even though she didn't do anything, is seen as like completely unacceptable, and what he's doing in response is seen as completely acceptable. Because it's like, what is he supposed to do in that circumstance? Even though like moral compass should give you some
not even acceptable, but like expected. Like he wouldn't, if he had accepted her back into the house, like.
I feel like they also could have moved to Mumbai.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I feel like they also could have like disappeared into the wind. He probably didn't know that was an option, but I'm just saying. Also, I do feel bad. That kid apparently from the description came out real British looking. So
well, like
they weren't gonna get that pass
as a baby.
No, they were like the description was that he was like very light skinned and his eyes were the color of the sea, and I'm like, wow, for just saying he's Caucasian, just or in the whole bush, just be like, and he's white. We don't know what else to say about that. It's like, but it made me sad they died. I wanted that kid to grow up and like be someone in like a future book.
Yeah, they're like in the sequel, Rebel Queen 2, where Sita gets pulled back in from her peaceful life in the countryside. That guy teams up with her.
61 years later. Yeah, she's in her 80s.
No, it's gonna be awesome. She's gonna be like Yoda on his back, and he uses his white skin to get in to the British Empire, and then they'll take it down from the inside.
I would have liked.
This is where historical fiction often deviates. You don't tend to get sequels. Sometimes you do, but a lot of them tend to be more standalones.
So this is what they should do. This is just a suggestion. Historical fiction to just fiction. So for every historical fiction you write, you just get like a sequel that's completely and utterly fiction for the people who enjoy that.
Yes, I would like this. Please, thank you.
Right, and I think it would work because in my brain, he goes to England. You know, he knows like he gets to say who his aunt is, and basically like Queen Victoria is like, oh hey, I knew those people, and basically he just becomes like an advisor for India in England until more stuff goes down, and then he sabotages them from the inside. I would love this story.
I say, like we could have gotten some awesome things using just the name.
You want a history rewrite?
Like we could have gotten an awesome story using just the name of the Hellfire Club.
Listen, I love historical fiction, but I'm not gonna lie. For a large part of my life, fiction was the escape from reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm aware of the bad things that happen. I like to think that we could just rewrite it, which I know to be true anyway, but
we're doing it anyway, aren't we?
Yeah, let's God, that's a whole
that's
entire other podcast series that we haven't even begun. So any other final thoughts?
I think that's it for this one. For this
that's
book.
It for this one.
What do we have next?
Naimah's pick.
Okay, so I went around the bush a lot trying to figure out what book to pick, and ended up just at the beginning based off a suggestion of Steven for a book that I have bought but have not read, but it seemed really interesting. We have talked about this book because it does have the most ridiculous back cover description I have ever read. So it is Bug. Oh no. It is Bug.
I've seen it.
It is by Giacomo Sartori. It's an Italian translation. I think well, I would consider this like a very good attempt at I have not read it yet, so I will be reading it for the first time with all of you, but a very Italian attempt at some sort of, I don't like dystopian type sci-fi thing. All of them have there's a hacker sphere, but it's also their father is a data analyst for Nutella. So it's like you kind of get like a lot of weird things going on. So I'm really excited about this book. But it is an Italian translation. And just from the cover, I'm expecting a lot. So hopefully not disappointed.
Excellent. I'm stoked.
Yeah.
Very excited. All right. Well, with that, Naimah, if people want to speak about Italy, where can they find you?
I am on Instagram as other places, other pages, and you can also find me on Instagram as Twitter as Imaginon.
And Jessica, if people want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter as JM Bailey Writes.
And Stephen, if people can advise you on how to consume caffeine safely, where can they find you?
Probably in the hospital. You can find me all across social media as some version of Peppermint Gentleman. For Twitter, that's Peppermint Gent.
And you can find me with the rest of Geek Elite Media at Geek Elite Media and our Facebook page /Geek Elite Media. Archived episodes of this podcast and other podcasts can be found on our website, geekelitemedia.com. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to us wherever you get this podcast. It helps other people find all that we have to offer. If you've got a couple extra dollars this summer, jump on over to our Patreon page with all sorts of exclusives and extra content. But until next time, this is the Love of Pages team reminding you to keep turning those pages and always remember to
Geek
geek
out.
out.
That was a good one. We are all 1, 2, 3, 4 on that on my end.
Mine too.
I appreciated it. Sounded